Okay, we're recording. Hi there, my name is Oisin and I'm a private driver guide based in Ireland. So for the past 4 years I've been working in my own country, bringing people on luxury private tours all around Ireland. And I've met some pretty amazing people along the way. But in a past life I actually worked in the Italian Dolomites as a hiking guide, and I've always wanted to kind of go back there and maybe figure out a way of bringing my skills as a guide back over there again. So that's what I did last week. I brought over a wonderful group of people from New York, and we had 6 wonderful days in the Italian Dolomites. Lots of food, lots of wine, lots of Aperol spritzes, lots of meats and cheeses, and a good sprinkle of hiking in there as well. So yeah, that's what this video is, to show you what it looks like to spend 6 days up in the Italian Dolomites. So I'll switch over to a voiceover now, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Okay, so this is day 1 where I've met Maria and Susan and their lovely family, and it begins with a 500-metre ascent up from the car park to this place known as Fodata Vedla, which is a refugio up in the Dolomites, and it's just stunning. It's not accessible by car, so once you get up there you kind of have the whole place to yourself and all the other people who are travelling through the region. We had a really nice meal there and a couple of pints, and then the next day we got up, packed up our bags, and we began the day's hiking. This is just such an awesomely scenic day. You're up in the mountains, in the middle of nowhere, there's marmots chirping at you, and the landscape is like no other. We had a really lovely lunch at the Senes Hut Refugio a little bit along the way, and then we headed back and spent the evening in our refugio. The next day we began the hike down to our cars, and then we headed over to the town of Selva, which is where we were going to spend the next 4 days. The hike down was definitely a lot more pleasant than the hike up, which we were all doing after about 12 hours of travelling and 5 hours of driving. Along the way we stopped at Cinque Torre, which is an extremely scenic part of the Dolomites, and also was one of the frontiers of a lot of the fighting during World War I. So on top of all of this amazing scenery, everywhere you looked were old World War I trenches, as well as lookout posts. The Dolomites really is just a playground for any sort of sport that you want to do. So even here in this little quick video, there's about 3 or 4 different groups of people who are climbing to the top of this rock. And it seems that anyone can just rock up, and if you have the skills, do it. The next day we went up to what inspired me to come to the Dolomites originally, which is the ridge at Saceda. But unfortunately the weather was not on our side and the visibility was extremely poor. And on top of that, the rain was pretty ferocious, so I was glad that everybody had their waterproofs on and we were well warmed up in this horrible weather. The bad weather made for some very scenic video footage, but then it was a bit cold and a bit wet, so we had to pivot and grab an early lunch at Sofia Hut. The food here was amazing, and a glühwein really helped warm up the cockles that were cold and wet. And then after lunch the weather really cleared up, so we got to go and explore a little bit of my favourite ridge in the Dolomites. I then dropped my gang back at their hotel, and I got a glass of Lagrein, which is a local red wine, and sat reading my book watching the beautiful Sassalungo mountain. It is just insane, the views here. I can never get over how beautiful this place is. The next day was kind of the whole reason we went to the Dolomites in the first place, which was to attempt to climb a via ferrata. A via ferrata really is just an iron cable that extends all the way up a mountain, and once you get some simple safety gear, they're pretty doable, but they do require a little bit of skills and expertise. So we all headed up in a complete whiteout, so we didn't really get a view at the top, but the actual climb up and down is what really makes it so exciting. This one is called Gran Seir. Stage left. Gran Seir is kind of the perfect first via ferrata to do, because only parts of it are cabled and other parts involve scrambling. And it's quite steep, so you do need to be very careful where you take your steps, but once you go slow and carefully, you should be fine. And we had a really good day for it, the conditions were dry, everybody got along really well, and there was good communication, and I felt everyone was quite strong doing it. So yeah, I think we were all just on a high after this day. It was such a lovely day out. The last day, Susan and Elliot and I went on a large traverse hike that was about 20 kilometres, I'd say. It saw us hiking from the top of Dontersapides, which I'm pronouncing terribly, but it's a hut at the top of Val Gardena, and traversing all the way over to Puez Hut, and then heading down into the valley back to Selva. So it's a lovely loop, and it's a nice long day out. but it can be pretty, there's a lot of uphills, and then there's a very, very long 2-hour downhill that I ended up doing twice in 2 days. So yeah, that was a little tired. You get fairly shaky knees after it, but to be honest, it just rounded out one of the most wonderful 6 days of touring that I've ever got to do. Like I said, I usually do this work in Ireland. There's a little bit less hiking involved, so the fact that I could bring clients over to Selva, over to the Dolomites, and show them why I love this area so much, and see their eyes light up when they see these beautiful meadows or these beautiful cliffs, it's my dream come true. So this was an absolutely perfect trip with an absolutely wonderful group of people.